is a third worldist. Why is it third worldist if I just believe that different countries should just respect their boundaries and
Because that's what
have
because you're a petty
self-determination?
nationalist that believes in self-determination for Africa and all these other places. And look,
What do you mean
they're
petty nationalist? Hold on, I
petty
want to.
nationalism, nationalism for all nations. Like
Oh,
these
so
groups should
pan.
have a nation state.
I'm actually more in favor of regional civilization states like China and Russia. So I actually don't believe in nationalism, really, technically speaking. But
Okay, so but isn't that kind of a form of colonialism if you believe in a civilization state? Because won't one be the master,
no, I
the
think the
other be the
difference
slaves?
between colonialism and civilization states is that the relationships you find in civilization states between different peoples are organic, regional, and are based in a sense of mutual recognition between different cultures. Whereas colonialism, you
But
have
in
a
practice, that doesn't work that way.
it does though, because in colonialism you have an isolated periphery going halfway across the world to a region it has no real geographic connection to or cultural connection to, and just extracting resources. Where if you
So
look at
what
China,
civilization state would Chechnya or Turkestan be a part of?
Russia, 1000%.
Okay, but obviously Chechnya would be subordinated to the ethnically Russian culture if it's part of a civilization state.
It's well, in practice, it's not because in Chechnya they practice the Chechen culture, and there's a mutual understanding between the ethnic Russians and the ethnic Chechens that they each have their own different culture, but they're all part of one civilization where they all recognize themselves as being a part of a greater civilization. And that's what makes it a civilization, in my view, is that you have different groups that come to an understanding with each other and learn how to coexist. And
I think that's
I think Russia has done that and China has done that, and the West and America has not done that. I don't think diversity in itself is bad. I just think what you need is mutual recognition for it to be civilized. And I think what we have is an uncivilized diversity, and that's the problem.
I would just disagree with the characterization that it's a mutual understanding, like with East Turkestan and these, even I,
Why
I
not?
don't think that you can create because ultimately the capital is in Moscow, the power is
Yeah,
in Moscow, the sovereignty lies in the hands of
but
the
that's just
dominant group.
in practice, that sovereignty doesn't mean your way of life is going to be controlled in this or that way. That sovereignty means, in the
Could be.
last and final sense, you are not going to allow bigger powers to come and lay claim to your territory and do as they please. You're going to stick with Russia and roll with Russia in a world full of hostile
Yeah,
powers.
well,
So
and by definition, that's suzerainty. By definition, that's suzerainty,
when
which is colonialism.
Chechens are loyal to Russia, they're going to go in Ukraine and fight for the Russians. But what they're not going to do is allow some center in Moscow to start dictating their culture and their way of life and their traditions and their mores.
But it
So
could
that is the
happen.
mutual
But
that.
it could that's that's a matter of discretion. When
Well, here's the thing:
in
if
other
that
times
did,
in Russia, Russia imposed the Russian language on people that didn't like on Georgia and other parts of
are you talking
the
about during the
empire.
Russian Empire
Yeah,
or during the Soviet Union?
during the Russian Empire.
Well, the Russian Empire, one of the factors of the revolution there was the fact that this policy was untenable. Right after that revolution, what did you see? You saw all these ethnicities scattered to the wind to other powers, especially Georgia, by the way. And it was the Bolsheviks who had to bring them all back precisely by giving them their own SSRs and unique languages and whatever republics and so on. So actually keeping that empire together, you had to undo all of the czar's policies. Those policies were not tenable into the modern age. And by
But
the way,
what's the difference though,
because
functionally?
under the Romanovs, which adopted a more westernized kind of system, they did adopt the European practices of colonialism, which when they started modernizing and industrializing with the rise of all these nationalist movements, it wasn't tenable. But before the Romanovs, when Russia was like a land Eurasian empire, inheriting the Golden Horde and the legacy of the Mongols, the Tsardom of Muscovy actually did have a civilization state where different groups could coexist and there could be an understanding, and there wasn't this kind of forcing of the Russian language and so on others. So I think it's a fine line. I think there are Eurasian land empires that have traditions of having diversity and minorities who they tolerate and respect, and in return they're loyal to the center. And I think that's not the same as the kind of diversity you have in the West, where it's just complete chaos and
Okay, but the original question is, how
yeah,
is a civilization state different? And what you're saying is that
yeah,
basically an empire is comparable to a so-called civilization state, and isn't an empire by definition imperial and colonial, and therefore it's a
yeah,
matter of discretion whether they enforce their
in
culture
sure.
on peripheral
So,
people?
so in a semantic sense, an empire is imperialist because the root word of imperial and imperialism comes from empire.
Right.
So semantically, that's true.
So it's the
But
same.
hold on, semantically, but concretely speaking, when we use the word imperialism, we're referring to a very specific system which emerges from Europe and from European colonialism, which is qualitatively speaking very different from the empires like the Ottomans, the Safavids, the Mughals, the Yuan, the Ming, the Qing, the Russians, and so on and so forth. Qualitatively, a very different form of statehood and sovereignty.
But functionally, because if you're saying
Very
that
different,
the
functionally, very different.
okay, but
Just
hang on,
the only
but
thing
hang
is
on, hang on.
semantic.
Okay, I you're trying to rebut something I haven't even said anything.
Yeah,
So, because you say that your ideal, you're not a petty nationalist, meaning you're not in favor of nationalism for all nations, you're in favor of civilization states. And I said, well,
yeah,
isn't that colonialism? Because doesn't inevitably the dominant or the numerically superior group dominate the periphery? And you said, well, it's about reciprocal loyalty. And I said, well, what about in cases where it's obviously one side is dominating the other? And you said,
it's
and
war.
in one case it didn't work out. In Russia it didn't work out. I said, but
When a
that's
great
really, but hang on, but that's really a matter of
yeah.
that's the particular circumstance.
So
But there's
when in
nothing.
history, historically speaking, when an imperial sovereign transgresses the honor of a subjugated or minority group, that leads to war. And it's not a stable situation. So I guess one side will just get exterminated or something. I don't know. Usually in history that might happen. But
Yeah.
when you have a civilization state where different groups and there's a dominant ethnic group, but there's also minorities who can coexist and also be a part of the empire, making it the civilization that it is. That's not colonialism. That's not imperialism in the sense we're using it, because those groups, there's a sense of respect for them and for their honor. And if that respect for their honor doesn't exist, the
Then
co
they get
the
exterminated. They could get exterminated or forcibly assimilated.
or the reverse could happen, and this is actually what's given rise to some dynasties, is that the minority group, if they happen to be nomads, for example, comes and conquers the empire and so on. So yes, you're right.
Okay.
Some cases in human history have led to the extermination of one group or the other. But what's contributed to historical progress has been different groups being able to develop relationships of mutual understanding.
No, it's
Without
been
that,
hierarchy.
shut up. Without that mutual understanding, geographically, we would not see the territories of these empires.
I swear he's looping and going in circles.
Be
I might.
able to
Fine, and
Holy
communicate.
shit.
here's my point. My point is you're basically arguing for colonial empires, but
No.
nice because they're based on mutual honor and respect. But that's not necessary because if a vastly more powerful, if the dominant force is vastly more powerful, then they can go and kill that group. That's a definition of sovereignty.
So
So what you're arguing for is the dominant core of a civilization to have sovereignty over the whole civilization.
That's a modernist view just based on the if you think honor is not a factor of civilization and culture, at this point you lose humanity. You're not human anymore. You're just, what are you, some kind of killer robot and whatever, creating an AI that's going to kill us all? I
It's
don't know.
not a question of no. It's just a question of
Honor,
realism.
honor
It's
is
a
a
question of
factor
the
of
reality of
civilization.
power. No, but power
Power,
is more real than honor.
even the Mongols had an honor code, and it wasn't just pure power. Even they had an honor code.
You gotta play nice. You gotta play nice with the big boy.
Here's the point.
Even they had lines they would not cross because of honor.
So the
it's
difference.
a factor
Yo,
of the
it's
existence
stop
of
talking
human
over each other. And like, if Nick is like rapid fire ADHD and Haas is long winded, you guys got to be on the same pace. Go back and forth, man.
Is cuckery okay if it gives you more power or you have honor?
What are you talking about?
If being a cuck can somehow lead you to have more honor in a utilitarian sense, Does that mean that makes you more powerful and therefore you're tenable for a human civilization?
One's got nothing to do. You're talking about a sexual relationship versus an empire.
Well, it's an
Totally
example
not
of it's an example of being dishonorable just for the pursuit of power. Is that tenable
No,
civilization?
well, that's the fallacy of
So who
composition.
cares? So who cares about honor? Why don't we all be like Adam 22 and just do what makes us the most money? Who
These are
cares
just
about
not
honor?
arguments.
'Cause
These
it's
are just
not in
not
the
serious
Bible, bro.
arguments.
Because honor matters when it comes to what is the most fundamental to what is a human existence.
Okay, that's just nonsense.
All right,
What you're
so-
saying is just nonsense. It has nothing to do with the system that you're arguing for. You're
I'm
saying
not arguing for a system.
you're arguing for a civilization. You're
I'm
arguing the
giving-
civilization state is not
Yeah.
colonial.
I'm
or
giving
imperial.
a description of objectively existing systems, which I believe the tendency of world
Concretely?
history goes in the direction of. Yeah, real, actual things that already exist, not things that I need to argue for. And this is how it works. And you're saying that's just colonialism, but nice. But qualitatively speaking, it has nothing to do with European colonialism. Without you making these abstractions of just power, yeah. I mean, technically, if you're the head of a household as a father, you have the power to kill your whole family. Does that mean you're going to do it? Does that mean
It means
it's
you're
logical to
sovereign,
do that?
but it means you're sovereign, and it means that the
But
children
no
don't have their
sovereignty-
own sovereignty.
Yeah, but here's what you're missing, okay? There is no such thing as unconditional sovereignty. Every form of sovereignty is conditional. If you don't satisfy your population, they're going to rise up and fucking overthrow you.
What is your definition of sovereignty?
The ultimate within your power, the ultimate exercise of authority, the ultimate authority. But the ultimate authority is still conditioned by premises not in its control.
Well, hold
The
on.
ultimate authority has to respect its subjects. It has to respect the ground that gives rise to it. If you don't do that, you're no longer the ultimate authority because someone else has a better grasp of reality than you and will overthrow you. If you are more in tune with the people, you rise up and you overthrow the sovereign. That's the story of history, right?
Oh, so in the United
there's
States, the people are sovereign, not the president.
The people are not sovereign in any institution in the U.S., but here's the thing. Objectively speaking, is the U.S. government in trouble because of the extreme polarization that's happening and the extreme kind of level of dissolution with institutions? I mean, I think you yourself would make the argument that it is.
And yet, the government is the only legitimate authority or the only legitimate institution that can wield authority.
So you think there is no
despite
line? You think there is no line the government can't cross that would lead to? You think there's nothing the government would do that would ever provoke the U.S. population to overthrow it? There's nothing they can do.
I'm saying what I'm saying, which is that the people do not have not legitimately able to exercise authority.
Sure. So if the U.S. government decides,
so you're not even. You just want to use this as
no.
monologue,
Hey, listen. The U.S. government decides they want to go neighborhood to neighborhood and kill everyone's babies. Will they still be in government for the next 10 years?
That's a ridiculous question.
No, will they? Yes or no? Is it unconditional or is it conditional authority?
Can the people exercise authority?
Yes.
How? I can go and commit an act of violence.
He can
by overthrowing the government. It's happened. It's called a revolution.
If I went and go and killed you, what would happen to me?
You'd go to jail. You're an individual. When a people,
who would send me to jail? Who would send me to jail?
The police. And where does their authority come from? Their authority comes. The police are a minority, though. If the population rises up, it's called a revolution. It's happened plenty of times.
They can beat the Coast Guard.
So let's follow that logically. So let's talk about
who makes up the army? Who makes up the army? Who's in the army?
Let's talk about it logically. So a civilization state, if there's a peripheral group and they rise up and they fight the sovereign, and then they become their own state.
Yeah.
Then it's no longer a civilization state, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
If there's no other, if there's no form of mutual recognition where different groups coexist, it's not a civilization state.
So wouldn't we be at square one?
So So you're arguing for something that's mutual. So everyone, it's like a federation, is what you're saying.
No, it's a form of mutual recognition based on tradition and honor, which is not necessarily written in stone. It's just an implicit fact. It's not necessarily written in stone that, I mean, it might be in Russia,
written
but
in law? Is it written? Is it written in the Constitution or what?
it's not. It's you don't have to write in a fucking constitution that you're not going to make it a law that everyone's third born child is going to be sent to the government to, like, you know, be sacrificed or some shit. It's an implicit rule. You understand? It's an implicit line. You know, you're never going to cross. Any wise ruler would understand these implicit red lines you don't cross to jeopardize your authority.
Sure. Well, that's very clear. I'm glad you clarified that. So it's a state that comes together on the basis of implicit honor and what?
Mutual recognition between different peoples.
Mutual recognition, but it's not written and it's not set in stone. It's dynamic and it's implicit.
Yeah. For example, this is how, like, the Safavid Empire worked. This is how the Qing dynasty in China worked. The Qing dynasty didn't have a constitution, and there were still things that regulated the ways in which different groups interacted, and it wasn't written in a constitution. Constitutional sovereignty is somewhat of a recent. I mean, you can find exceptions in history, sure, but it's somewhat of a recent thing.
Well, would this be like psychic?
For example,
would it be like psychic phenomenology? Like we're just fucking psychically aware?
Okay, before there was constitutions in Europe, for example, there were still sovereigns who still did not do whatever the fuck they wanted because they understood that their sovereignty is conditional. It's not an unconditional form of sovereignty. You have to make sure, for example, that, you know, the peasants aren't being too overtaxed or something. And that's not written anywhere, but you still have to attend to these realities or else it's going to jeopardize your rule. So that's just common sense, honestly. So Zherka, if you're a king in the Middle Ages, and you start overtaxing your fucking peasants, they're going to rise and overthrow you. So you don't do it. Does that mean it has to be in a constitution?
I see what you're saying, right? But it feels like we're looping to square one.
Yeah, which is my point. I mean, what are we even arguing about?
We're arguing. You said about third worldism as well.
Yeah, and I'm not a third worldist, you know.
Except you kind of are, because you're in favor of self-determination for the third world.
Okay, was Woodrow Wilson a third worldist?
Well, no, it precedes that classification, but I mean, kind of, yeah.
So the League of Nations was third worldist?
Yeah, in the sense that it preceded the United Nations.
That's insanity. What basis for third worldism was in the interest of the U.S. ruling class during the 1920s? Why would Woodrow Wilson be a third worldist? You're saying Woodrow Wilson was like a Pan-African, like this dude was like straight up out here, third worldist, total black power, brown power kind of guy.
Yeah, the self-determination thing. The self-determination thing is, and I understand why people attribute the connotations they do to third worldism, because it totally ignores the reality of the races. I mean, the idea that, like, I mean, look at the states in Africa. The people of Central African Republic should have self-determination. I mean, the country doesn't even have a demonym. Central Africans.
So do you think? So you say it's race. Do you think there are different levels of development historically when it comes to technology that people go through?
I do, yeah.
Who do you think had more of a percentage of African DNA, the ancient Egyptians or the people living in the British Isles at the time of ancient Egypt?
5,000 years ago?
Yeah.
Who had more African DNA?
Right.
I don't know. Probably the English or what?
So you think the English had more African DNA than Egyptians 5,000 years ago?
Or the Egyptians? Well,
right.
Where are we going with this?
Well, one was markedly far more advanced technologically than the other.
But the Egyptians are not sub-Saharan Africans.
Right, but they had more African DNA. They weren't as pure white.
But they're not the same race.
Yeah, I think even in the hieroglyphics, the darker ones were the slaves.
Even when it comes to even the Nubians who were darker and the Cushitic civilizations were more advanced than the majority of Western Europe.
But they're fucking noobs. Like,
then all of Western and Northern Europe was far more.
Do you think it's
primitive.
not racial?
I don't think it's. I can't.
So why does Africa have no development? Why have they not industrial?
Because you're hyper focusing on a small portion of history when modernization and modern technology is extremely recent and it's implemented very rapidly in a small scale of time. So
Okay.
the people that have modernization and the development of productive forces right now, you can't attribute that to their race and any kind of inherent characteristics that we had 10,000 years ago,
Really?
because it just emerged recently. Like for the majority.
So
of
what you're
mankind,
telling me is there's nothing racial about 97% voting Democrat?
because we were all fucking caveman for the majority of our existence. So how can you say one is racial or the? I mean, maybe there's something to race. I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah,
A,
I don't. It
I
started
can't-
at Genesis,
listen,
nigga. Fuck your
listen,
faggot
listen.
caveman, Lucy,
I can't-
Lucifer, last common
Shut the
ancestor.
fuck up.
Fake news.
All right, and guess what? The people who wrote Genesis looked more like me than they did Nick.
That's just like a Reddit talking point.
But
We're
it's
not
a
talking
fact.
about okay, but we're
But it's
not.
a
But that's
fact.
got nothing to do with what we're
So
talking
if
about.
you're a Christian, right, and then if it's
but
about
are we
race,
talking about technological development? Or are we talking about the author?
if we're talking about superiority in general and what's a better civilization,
But we're
determined-
not. We're not. We're talking about
okay.
whether Africa will industrialize.
But the point is, who deserves self-determination? I think you would agree that Christianity is probably an example of someone who deserves self-determination, if you're Christian or not, right? So if Christianity originates outside of the superior race, how can race be a determining factor behind self-determination?
Nobody ever said anything about Christianity. It's about levels of technological development. Clearly,
So
the people in
according
Sub-Saharan.
to you,
Hang on, hang on.
according to you, levels of
Okay.
technological development.
Is this just so? This is just a monologue. Then clearly, you're doing 80% of the talking, and
All right.
everything you say is just you're making my argument for me. I never argued that Christians or self-determination is on the basis of Christianity. Either way, we're talking about two different continents. We're talking about Asia versus Africa.
So it's not a factor in self-determination. It's just technology is a factor in self-determination and who deserves it.
Yeah, and industrialization. If
Okay,
the whole continent of Sub-Saharan Africa can't industrialize,
but if industrialization is a thing that has only happened in the past maximum 400 years, how can you say eternally these people will never be able to industrialize?
Because that's not what I'm saying.
But you said Africa will never achieve industrialization. You said never. You didn't say they won't.
I don't think well, they're not going to achieve it anytime soon. Maybe in 10,000 years.
But that's not what you said. You said they will never, right?
Okay. Well,
and why would it take? How do you know it's going to be a few thousand years when, for example, China had no industrialization and then like overnight they fucking achieved it? Same with Russia. Like, I mean, look, their racial theorists 100 years ago were saying the Russian Slavs will never achieve industrialization because of their backward racial character. And then they did in 10 years.
Because Slavs had civilization for the last 2,000 years.
But that's not what
doesn't.
But that's not what racial theorists 100 years ago were saying. They were saying the Slavs, on account of their backward racial character and stock, will never achieve the level of civilization and industrialization that Europe has in science and technology. But within a 10-year time span,
did you even hear what I said, or you just?
All right, well,
I think I'm just like not even. Just like turn my volume off and just. But Russia had civilization. Russia had written language. Russia had two-story buildings. Russia had the wheel. Africa doesn't have any of that.
So you define civilization just on the basis of those things? And
yeah, on written language and the wheel. Those are kind of big ones. Yeah.
even if the wheel is not necessary for your terrain and your geography.
I've heard that. Yeah. You need the wheel.
Well, I kind of beg to also to say that sub-Saharan Africans had no civilization ignores. Then why did they have a development of history where gradually they were becoming larger and larger empires, and all of the patterns that we can see anthropologically of how civilizations arise, we observed in Africa. So where did that come from? Why weren't they?
By definition, there's no history because they have no written language.
That's not true. That's not true.
Record of
That's
it.
not
Really?
true. The Bantu
sub-Saharan written language.
Sub-Saharan Africans were not hunter-gatherers by and large. They were nomadic, they were pastoralists, and they were also sedentary agriculturalists. And these are the premises and foundations of creating the bigger civilization.
And what written language did they have to produce their history?
I'm not aware of any, but written language is
because they
but
didn't have
But here's the thing: for the majority of mankind's existence, we were caveman. Written language emerges. What is it? 10,000 years ago. Okay, that's still a small minority of mankind's actual recorded existence. Apparently, I don't know. It depends on what you believe.
So the point is, but you would agree then that either way, they are very far behind in technological development.
Well,
But I don't. But here's the thing. There's
define
people,
wheel.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! There was people who were very far behind in development, for example. But as soon as they came into contact and initiated this process of mutual recognition that I'm talking about, we see an extremely rapid development. This is what happened, for example, with the Swahili culture in Eastern Africa when it came into contact with the Islamic civilization, for example, which was one of the ways that sub-Saharan Africa was getting an. Because here's the thing: most of the rapid development we're talking about with civilization happens where? The Mediterranean. Why? Because there's a bunch of different groups that are sailing to one another, learning from each other, and that's going to accelerate the process to a great degree. So it's not like you have some races, you put them in a lab and, oh, are you slower? Are you faster? It's the interaction between different peoples that actually is the motor of development that we see recorded in history.
Really? Can we
So,
interact?
since we have the internet, then why has sub-Saharan Africa not improved in the last 30 years?
Oh,
It has improved in the last 30 years.
Really? They've industrialized?
They haven't achieved the necessary sovereignty to kind of have the super industrialization, but they have improved. To say they haven't is just a lie.
So
or
they haven't
maybe
industrialized.
some people are like good with music.
But here's the thing.
Wait, Haas, what are the chances? Bro, you're so boring. You yap. Yo, what if some races just good with basketball and music?
All right,
is that possible?
Listen. Shut up for a second, okay?
All right.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
This is exactly
build the wheel. Let's go.
The prerequisite to industrialization is sovereignty and specifically control of your means of production. So if I'm saying that if I believe in African self-determination, that's literally what they need to industrialize. If they don't have that, they will never be able to. So how can you name one country in history that could industrialize without having self-determination? There's no such thing. So obviously, if all your fucking resources are owned by foreigners, you're not going to be able to have the rapid industrialization Russia, China, and other communist countries.
So now it's sovereignty. So first you said that
self-determination
in order
is
to industrialize, it's about interconnectivity. And I said, well, we have that. And then you said, well, no, actually now it's political sovereignty.
First of all, interconnectivity allows you, when you're sovereign, for example, like the Japanese.
So
after the Meiji Restoration, they sent their people to the West to learn in their universities. They came back with it. And because they were a sovereign state, they could kickstart an extremely rapid process of industrialization. So, yes, a lot of that has to do with people.
Hong Kong industrialized under colonialism. Hong Kong was controlled by the British until the 90s. They industrialized.
Hong Kong did not independently industrialize. No, it didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
The British just brought it to Hong Kong. The Hong Kong people didn't do it themselves.
Oh, okay. So why then couldn't we bring it to Africa?
Because we had no intention to. Because Hong Kong was set up. Because Hong Kong was
developing all the resources.
Exactly. We just wanted to take their resources and bring them home. We didn't want to build these magnificent cities like Macau and Hong Kong and Singapore, which are trading hubs.
Yeah, like Cape Town.
Finance. Right? That was a completely different case. What are you talking about? That was European.
They didn't build cities. That was a pretty magnificent city.
That was a settler colonialism where they just got rid of or
what about
swept clean the native population.
What about niggas Atlantis? Can they bring Atlantis back?
Macau. You mentioned Hong Kong. You can find a spot in the world and take your people and put them there and build a country there and kick out all the people that were already there. That's not what happened in Hong Kong. That's not what happened in Macau. That's not what happened in Singapore. So I don't know why you're bringing that up.
I mean, what's more likely that they get it together or not?
The way they get it together is by achieving self-determination. That's square one.
But they can't govern themselves. It's obvious.
Well, how can you know until they actually become independent? How can you know?
They were independent for thousands of years before Europeans arrived, and then we arrived there and we harvested all the resources.
And again, I just explained to you how these timescales are meaningless because for the overall majority of mankind's existence, we were cavemen, so it doesn't matter.
Well, how come just there's certain tribes that are way less than tribes, like let's say you compare the Native Americans and they haven't bothered with technology, and then there's these dudes who are drinking fucking blood and piss and they just don't develop. Like, could there be
Which what are you talking about?
those
You have to
guys,
give me an
like,
example.
they have a spear, and I don't want to be racist, but
Oh, she's saying African tribes are.
I'm just saying it's
That's
fucking,
not. It's just not true.
You're
It's just not
saying
true.
there's never been a vacuum of time throughout all of recorded history where these guys got it together.
There's no vacuum of time that you could use as an example for making a claim about the essential characteristics of these people. No.
Wow. Okay. What would the time length be?
There's no time.
No.
length because
How fast could you see them industrialize if everything went correct?
10 years, 10, 20 years.
Just like
Just like China.
we see
Just
it.
like
You
China.
think Africa will industrialize in 10 years?
If they achieve something similar to what China did politically, yes.
You want to make a bet?
I mean, are they going to achieve the sovereignty?
Why don't we
or
just
not?
look at Chinese and black IQ scores in America and see which PowerPoint presentation is going to get done?
Yeah, but Talib already destroyed IQ. It's completely.
Well, I'm not
meaningless.
saying IQ. I'm just saying,
form of
like,
statistical
all right, what
power.
about productivity in America?
I mean, what about it?
Like the blacks versus the Chinese, is that 10-year difference each? Like they can both get it together.
Foreigners,
same
the reason
rate, same amplification.
Foreigners do better in America in general, usually because they have close kinship networks that allow them to have a minimum of a baseline to start from. Whereas black people were slaves, and they, unlike every other group, pretty much, were not given any kind of equivalent to the 40 acres of a mule they were
So
promised.
you're telling me if I have a self-determined Chinese guy and a self-determined black guy in my classroom and the teacher says, pick for your school project, you're telling me this is a fucking 50-50. Who gives a fuck? It's the same shit. Yellow, black,
No,
whatever.
no.
I think we know I think we know where I'm going, right? I think I'm going with fucking ni hao, ching chong.
Because what you're talking about is individuals, and what I'm talking
No.
about
But it's
Yeah.
just I'm saying as a collective, you would still pick
Yeah.
the Chinese.
Listen, there's difference between people's cultures, sure, but you can't say
I'm not
that
picking the Chinese guy to dunk.
All I'm saying,
I'm not picking the Chinese guy to dunk, slam dunk.
You can't say that they will never. That's like saying you're God. How can you know? You can't say they will never be able to.
No,
do
I'm
this.
saying that the timer has expired for that project.
I mean,
I
what
found-
about
I found
Albania?
my way.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Albania's the biggest shithole in Europe. What about Albania?
And guess what? We got the hottest women in Drake, and we need to be conquered by the Catholics so we don't become a rambling
the most corrupt
atheist retard like you.
That is the most
Actually,
corrupt shit
they're
I've
gonna
ever-
self-determine as fast as the Chinese. They're gonna take the same math tests
And
as
guess
well.
what? And guess what? Hey, why is it that under Enver Hoxha, everyone had a job, they were industrializing,
Oh yeah, they did.
they were on a good path, but as soon as they got rid of their sovereignty and sold out, it became child trafficking and drugs and prostitution and
A whole continent failed to industrialize because of other factors.
They were just held back, bro.
There's-
Haas, are you like a blue hair
but hold on.
SJW now?
But it's
What
like,
the fuck?
it's straight up not true. You're just saying arbitrarily sub-Saharan Africa, meaning not.
Hey
the
Nick,
Sahara.
you're being an asshole. Give
It's
Haas,
not
give
true.
them.
What
Let it know,
state is
Nick.
industrialized?
Let him give them their participation trophy. Right? Is that what Haas is doing?
I'm just
We're all
saying,
equal. We're all equal.
stupid. This is
We're not
stupid. Listen,
equal.
I'm not saying-
I can beat up 10 Chinese guys, bro. I'm 6'5", bro.
I'm not saying-
I'm telling you, one HS nigga can fight. People have different skill sets, nigga.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not trying to say that sub-Saharan Africa was extremely historically developed or advanced or whatever. But what I am trying to say is that using that as an example of their future capabilities and future possibilities is historically retarded, and it's just
It's
illogical.
not, but okay. But if they didn't develop written language, you don't think that's indicative of a barrier for them to achieve?
I think
high
it's in
level
all
development?
probability very few groups developed written language and the wheel in isolation. Very few did. It's not a very common thing.
They
to
didn't,
develop in
and it's not
isolation.
even that. They subtracted our language. Like
Also,
Zherka,
to the
you
extent-
can't say the N-word, nigga.
So,
You
for
can't say
example-
nigga. I said, what? What? You're subtracting my
Shut the fuck
language,
up for a
bro.
second.
Okay.
to the extent of my knowledge, South America did not invent a functional mobile wheel, although they had wheels for toys and shit. They just didn't really use them. And yet they had extremely, compared to a lot of others in isolation, I guess, advanced civilizations, the Incas, the Aztecs, the Mayas, and so on
Where
and so
the
on.
fuck are they?
What I'm trying to say is I don't even think the wheel was all that important for them. So I can't, I see this as an arbitrary standard of civilization.
Well, then I guess it's all because they had no structures. They had
That's not
no
true.
wheels.
That's just ignorance. That's not true.
And absolutely, where are the 2-story buildings in sub-Saharan Africa?
Again, you're creating an arbitrary. First, you're saying there's no structures. Now you're saying 2-story buildings. I mean, yes.
How is that arbitrary? How we're talking about levels of technological development. You don't think that engineering large structures is technological development, and wheel isn't, and written language?
No, but I'm not claiming that
astronomy.
I'm not claiming sub-Saharan Africa was extremely technologically developed. So
there is no technology.
Wait, you just said they don't have a wheel, and now you're saying it's not extremely developed. Is it extremely? It's 0%, right?
It's not 0%.
Well, no, in comparison, it's 0.
It followed the same patterns of historical development that a lot of others did in their. For example, Europe before the Romans came was basically the same thing. Western Europe. It was, and they were like that for thousands of years, just like Africa now. So if you, I hope you never reincarnated into a time machine into the past, and you're a Roman.
I hope I don't get reincarnated thousands.
Yeah, I hope you never go into a time machine in ancient Rome and form the same assessment about the Germanics and the Gauls about their capabilities. Be like, these guys. These Germans, thousands of years from now, they're going to be living in huts, nothing.
If I went back 3,000 years and said,
that's not 3,000.
I would feel, 2,000.
Not even 2,000. Let's try 1,500.
Whatever. We're talking about the development of states right now, and you're making the argument.
Yeah, but how long
medieval times. You're making the argument in ancient or medieval times.
Okay.
There was less but there was even more development there than there is in Africa now. That is true.
The Germanics in like 100 AD were pretty much the same level as Africans.
Okay,
that's
2,000 years ago. So in 2,000 years, Africa.
So hold on, Nick. Hold on, Nick. Stop. I don't want to mute anyone. Nick, that means we found. He said in 10 years they can catch up. We found the number. It takes 2,000 years.
Yeah, exactly. 1,900 years. Yeah. So don't say never.
Never say never.
Okay. So,
you racist.
As a Semite, I have to educate you about scale. 2,000 years is not a long time for how long human beings have been around. It's just not.
But it's a lot larger than
relative.
10. We started at 10, and then you fucking sped us in your Armenian NASCAR to 2,000 miles per hour. You're fucking psychotic. Pull over. You're a Chinese driver.
Yeah. So, yeah, I appreciate you need this cheerleader Zherka for you. But here's the thing. When white Europeans were living in fucking caves for 50,000 years, that's a long time. So within a tiny sliver of time that this rapid advancement happened.
Fake history. Did you get that from carbon dating, a bubble? 50,000 years?
Did the genes just activate in this small window of time? Then how do we know it's not going to activate for other people's in a small window of time too?
You're right.
How do you know?
You're right. I'm saying you're right. In 2,000 years, Africa very well could industrialize.
Dude, do you not know basic math? Why would
I am agreeing with you.
Wait, wait. How big are the rims of those wheels in 2,000 years?
Zherka,
like big rims, like gangster cars?
Zherka, you're my friend. Straight up though, you're a low IQ retard. Shut the fuck up.
All right. At least hey, it's gonna take me 2,000 years as a nigga to catch up.
All right, the low IQ guys gotta
you're getting cooked.
Yeah. Listen, why would it be? That's an arbitrary amount of time. 2,000 years. Yes, 2,000 years ago, Europeans were living in the same state. But when we're speaking at a scale of human beings, let's say 50,000 years. 2,000 is nothing. And when the development happens in such a short window of time, no, that doesn't mean I'm saying 2,000 years from now, Africa could be developed. It could be fucking 5 years from now. And
Yeah?
logically speaking,
so?
when you map it to the time scale, it's just as probable if you understand the actual fucking scale that we're operating at. Like, it's so fucking stupid. So because 2,000 years ago, Europeans were at the same state, they were started off at the same place. Therefore, Africans are 2,000 years behind Europeans. No, it doesn't fucking work like that, though, because because how do you know that Africans are not 1,500 years into their development already? How do you fucking know? You don't know these things.
Right. So you're saying that Africa will develop in 5 years?
Fuentes, just admit you're not arguing from a perspective of logic. You're not arguing from a perspective of actually using your head. What you're saying is, oh, black people are stupid. Oh,
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
Hey, look, a retard like Zherka is the guy who your message is going to resonate with. Anybody who fucking uses their
You don't have to get mad because you're losing.
Listen,
seriously.
anybody
You're getting cooked, bro, and you're talking 90% of the time.
Again,
you're like cooking nothing. There's nothing on the pan.
Again, we have the low IQ. Listen, when you actually operate at the time scale, when you actually put it at that scale of time, 2,000 years means fucking nothing. When it comes to probability, it's nothing. It means nothing. You cannot infer anything about the inherent speed at which a people can develop. If arbitrarily within a small flash of time, someone can develop after 50,000 years of having been able to do nothing, okay?
Right.
So if you don't understand the argument I'm using, you are a fucking retard, and you should straight up not be allowed to have an opinion in public. If you don't understand this basic argument, you're a straight up fucking retard.
Hey, but
well, wait. So your argument, which is that Africa can industrialize in 5 years, this will resonate with an intelligent audience. An intelligent audience will not.
Yeah, Africa
can develop in 5 years.
See, look at the dishonesty of this fucking argument. You're trying to say that I'm saying that Africa, under the current circumstances,
you said it could. You said it could.
No, I said if Africa achieves sovereign self-determination, doing politically,
then it could develop.
Doing politically what China did, yes, it fucking could. Why not? I have no reason to believe it couldn't.
So that means. So hold on. Would that mean that they'd have to? Would that mean that they would have to think like the Chinese?
No, it means they would have to have a centralized state and aggregate their fucking resources and use the surpluses of their production in order to finance and fund independent industrialization and modernization that would make them a world power. Yes.
Can I get the non-kosher answer? Would that mean that they'd have to mobilize like the Chinese or change pigments? Dare I say?
Shit is so stupid, man. It's fucking stupid.
I think Nick's more practical with this argument, but Haas has got that
Zherka,
philosopher answer. He's got the deeper meaning here.
No. I do admit my shit takes more thought to understand.
It takes 2,000 years.
It is easier to believe. It is easier to believe. Like, oh, I'm just gonna ignore history. 10 years ago, I've been alive for 20 years, and on the news, I just see a bunch of stars in Africa.
Haas, you know why?
People are really fucking stupid because they're black and shit. And
no. You know why I think
you don't have to think at all.
Nick
don't have to think at all.
Nick's biggest kill shot would be to say, I don't believe from carbon dating a fucking bubble that Europeans were stuck 50,000 years. I don't believe in your caveman history, fake Zio news, Zio history. But Nick won't say it. Nick will never say it.
So Nick, how long do you believe mankind has existed? For how long?
I'm willing to accept whatever the mainstream answer is. I don't have a strong.
Zherka, he believes.
Yeah, he's not on my level, bro. According to the rabbis, the Talmudic rabbis, these guys who control the world, 6,000 years started with Genesis, nigga.
Okay. And you know what, Zherka? Why don't you fucking?
Don't you believe in dinosaurs and the moon landing?
Why don't you adopt the Indo-Aryan pagan religion instead of Christianity?
Hey, anything that gets me the wheel faster. Anything that gets me the wheel, because 2,000 years, I can't wait, bro. I don't have that. I don't have the time machine that you gave Nick.
I pray that you're not reincarnated, Zherka, because man, these Africans are gonna fucking kick your ass.
If you were a Roman 2,000 years ago, oh, these Germans will never be able to. But only 2,000 years because you have the foreknowledge. But But maybe it's 10,000 years if you had no foreknowledge.
You should go live there. You should go live there.
Why the fuck would I live there? Why do I need to live there?
Because it's the civilization of the future.
So what? I mean, why do
they're going to be 5,000 years ahead of us?
Yeah, because you're a cosmopolitan globalist who goes country shopping.
Me?
Yeah, you said you would fucking flee to China if we went to war. That you don't even have any loyalty.
I said I would support China.
No, you said you would flee there. I would support China.
You would fight for America?
My parents are immigrants. I would stay and fight against my government that's going to war with China for my country. You would flee, dude. You don't even have loyalty to any country.
I don't have loyalty to this state. Why would I go and fight for this state?
Dude, you hate the people who live here. You hate the white people who live here. You call them trash.
No, Nick, you got to fight for the transgender agenda, bro. The Satanist agenda.
You maybe you like the people that are part of your exact age and class demographic, but the majority of white people in this country, you fucking hate them.
Why are you salty? Why are you salty? Are you mad because I said that you think Africa will industrialize, which is retarded?
I said what I said, and you constantly repeating some shit I didn't say, that it's going to inevitably industrialize under any possible condition. No, if it achieves sovereign self-determination politically in a similar way China and Russia did, and yes, it will.
This debate felt like 2,000 years.
I feel like I'm in fucking
it felt like 10 for Haas.
Yo, keep going. You guys are good together.
I like Haas. I actually do like you, Haas.
You're gonna be bound to his feet in 5 years.
He doesn't reciprocate that. That's okay.
But I always used to argue with Haas about this, and he just doesn't believe in a race realism.
No, or the Jewish
power. I don't like. It's like I feel like maybe you're smarter than this, but you're just making you're presenting the argument in a way that retards will be like, that's stupid, and that's what the frustration really is. It's like, clearly you understand.
Yeah, try and see his point of view. Say the argument. If you were Haas, Nick, let's hear it.
No, I mean, look, I get your position. You can't obviously be out here saying that you think it's possible for Africans to, have an independent existence. But it's like, the way that my argument is being presented is straight up dishonest. Just straight up.
I mean, you've talked most of the time.
That's also true. Look,
but it's
come on. Did you need more time? Like, yo, Nick, don't mischaracterize any of his argument. Give us his argument in good faith. Go.
What he's arguing, well, honestly,
why do you have to do it like that? Well, honestly, you gotta fucking poke him, bro.
Because it's silly. But what he's saying is that he's saying that Africa does not have the correct conditions to industrialize. He's saying that they have not industrialized so far because they lack political sovereignty. And just because they had no technological development in the past, it's not a reason to believe they won't have technological development in the future, because it's an arbitrary timetable. I'm pointing out that they have fallen behind Europe in 2,000 years. He's saying in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of time. And that now that they're no longer isolated and under the right conditions, they could rapidly catch up and develop. They have, at least within them, the potential to do that. That's his argument. But
would you concede that China in the 1800s was rapidly behind industrial England?
Yeah. In terms of industrialization, yes.
Right. So why couldn't?
But not in technological development.
In technological development, they were vastly behind the European colonial powers.
But not the same thing that we're talking about with Africa, because China,
technologically, it's a negligible difference, because
it's not negligible. It's not negligible.
When you have such advanced ships and you have such advanced guns and weapons of these nature, it doesn't matter what relative degree of pre-modern technological development you've achieved. You're basically neutralized. This is why Europe is able to go around the fucking world and just
in warfare and exploration. Yes, but the point I'm trying to make is that China had written language. They had organized society.
Yeah.
For that, and they were not nomadic. They were also agricultural for thousands of years. And so.
Well,
Right? Am I wrong about this?
Yeah, China was a sedentary civilization, but here's the thing, it only ever advanced because of nomadic conquest. That's one thing. It's just true for most sedentary civilizations, actually. Second of all,
But
here's the
China is not nomadic.
yeah. But here's the thing. The Mongols were backwards nomads, and then what happened when they created these great empires? They had a huge advance of the productive forces and civilization. But here's my actual point. I think in good faith, I'm interested more in looking at the actual factors historically that are behind the technological development and written language and civilization that you're talking about. And it's one thing to just say, well, I mean, sub-Saharan Africa never had it. But on the other hand, what you can clearly observe from their history is that the direction in which they were developing and the tendency of history was in that direction. If we understand, for example, what happened in the Fertile Crescent or the Indus River Valley or the Yellow River in China, these are kind of like centers of the growth of these civilizations. It didn't happen overnight, and it was slow for everyone. It was equally slow, right? It's just what was an accelerating force that brought a lot of people into the fold of that was coming into contact with one another. Whereas sub-Saharan Africa was kind of just cut off from the rest of the world entirely. The three rivers or whatever, basins of agriculture I mentioned, all rapidly came into contact with each other, which was an accelerant.
Why the fuck did we stop talking about Jewish power? That was way more interesting than this dog shit yapping. What happened? We were talking about Jews ruling the world and we switched to fucking wheels? Man, we suck as a team. We suck. We should never... Chat, weren't we talking about the...
I feel like I've been...
We're talking about illegal topic, and we went to legal topics.
Well, what's the Indians' take? What's the Indians' take?
I feel like I've had the best takes throughout this whole time. Wouldn't you guys agree?
What's your take on the Jews?
I mean, like, in what aspect? What do you mean?
Oh,
like 'em or not
God.
like 'em?
What a kind of faggy answer was that? We're going to aspect it.
Do I like Jews?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Not right now. Fuck
No?
no.
Let's
Fuck
go. Let's go. Get his Instagram. Clip that. Get his Instagram.
Free Palestine.
Pull up his LinkedIn. Clip that.
Get it all. Get it all.
You ever get
That's
angry?
good.
You ever get...
Okay, I like this guy more now.
You-
now that he.
I get so
went out.
angry with political commentators who only use the word Zionist, but they're afraid to say Jew. Have you noticed that it's like...
Yeah, but this guy went all the way. This guy said he doesn't like Jews right now.
Yeah, with this guy's...
So massive respect. Massive respect to the
I
Indians.
can't... Haas and
Yo,
Nick are
fucking-
gold
This
together.
fucking Nazi calls me an Indian one more fucking time.
What
Oh
are
my
you gonna
God.
do, bro? What are you gonna
Yo,
fucking do?
Oh,
Haas.
here we go. This like dick sucking.
Haas and Nick...
Fuck this shit, bro. It's way too hot, bro.
Yeah.
I gotta like, yo. Why didn't you guys go to Yap Sesh, bro? I wanted
Get
to like
that
intrude,
burk
but
off. Get
fuck
I
the
that.
s-
burk off.
I
Put some-
All right,
swear
no,
to God...
I'm not taking it off because the Nazi told me to
All
take it off because I'm hot.
Listen. We have two political titans here going at it, and 2,000 viewers, none of them said switch back topics. We've been fucking going around a wooden wheel for 2,000 years. Please wrap it up. Conclude final statements from both of you, bro. Please. Let's just start with Nick, because Haas, I hear your voice spinning in my head. I can hear echoes. We let Haas talk so much. We need moderators in this bitch.
All right, you know what, Zherka? If you don't have to hear me talk if you read more books. How about that?
Give me a book, huh?
Boom.
Hey, I want a book on how to build a fucking wheel.
I can give you some books.
All right, go ahead. Let's start with you, Haas. We haven't heard you. Wrap it up. Concluding statements, boys.
Concluding statement, I think that it's easy to just be
Maybe they need a flying carpet.
yeah, it's late. Listen, closing statement is that, in order to think about things like civilization and history, you have to really go beyond what you think is intuitive and what you're familiar with. That's all I'd say. You have to really think beyond what what would assume based on how you see the world today. That's all
Yeah.
I'd say.
Okay, I wish you luck on beating the white man and Bill Gates and all the rulers that are ruling the world.
Global
Now,
hegemony.
yes, and now that's merch. The global hegemonic merch is coming out, guys, and the face is just a question mark. All right, go ahead, Nick. Nick, I've never in my life found you boring, but today you were boring. It's like you're not allowed to talk about industrialization. You're supposed to talk about Jews and be racist and be the.
It's because Haas is just sort of like he's getting the.
He put you in some fucking spell, bro. And I've never seen Nick let someone ramble that much. You must actually like him. You let him fucking go on and on and on. I was like, yo, he's steamrolling, bro. But it was crazy.
His arguments are resonating with me. I'm an intelligent guy.
He was steamrolling you until he realized his machine didn't have wheels. Go ahead.
You know what? I bet you anything Albanians still don't have the wheel. In Albania.
That's hey, give us 2,000 years, my nigga.
Give him 5. Give him 5.
It's 5 or 2,000. Just roll the dice.
Under Enver Hoxha, they'll have it in 5 days if he came back.
Haz, I'll tell you this, bro. When you went from the argument of 10 years, 5 to 2,000, these numbers are so separated that you scared everyone. But I guess you brought it back when you said 50,000 years of cavemen.
That's what I'm
but
saying.
You don't believe, the timeline of history has been warped. You don't actually know if there were cavemen 50. Bro, come on. Go by recorded history. You're going by fucking cave paintings like a fucking retard. You don't believe in cavemen. How do you know that they were wandering for 50,000 years? How do you know? You fucking smelt the rock? You believed in fucking COVID scientists told you? Get the fuck out of here. You don't believe in that caveman shit, bro.
I'll be open-minded. Were the cave paintings fake?
Was the COVID fake?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
But would you believe that? I don't know. I mean,
I'm saying when they tell you from an ice bubble, this rock is 280 million years old, my nigga, that's a COVID story. That's a fake story. You got to stop with that. Go back to all the material money on earth revolves around the Bible. Let's go. If we're going to the timeline of history, let's start at Genesis, recorded history. Let's do it like that. That caveman shit is the weakest, most pathetic argument. And Nick, I'm not gonna call it out, Nick, bro. What are you afraid you're gonna be called? He could have took you to dinosaurs, Nick. You believe in fucking dinosaurs? Get the fuck out of here.
Is 10,000 okay?
All right. Do you believe in dinosaurs?
Bro, don't put me on the spot.
Exactly.
Wow.
That's what I hate.
I don't believe in dinosaurs. I'll go there.
I think.
Wait. What the fuck did I just hear?
You
we don't believe in
of course.
dinosaurs.
TikTok believes in dinosaurs.
What
No,
the fuck? There's little visual proof. Bones, fossils, everything.
Really? Oh, hold on. 99% of all bones in museums are made out of rat bones and resin. The real ones in the Smithsonian Museum, like the giant bones in the Bible, they say. But dude, the first dinosaur bones were found by straight white men in only Western nations, never in fucking China or anywhere else on Earth. And they're like a fucking $1 million a bone. And it was an attack on Christianity, just like evolution and all that fucking gay shit. You guys aren't based. But Nick, please wrap it up. What is your final statement? Take us around the wheel, bro.
Well, yeah, I'm just not a communist, okay? I'm not in favor of self-determination for everybody. And that's because, and what I was trying to get at in the talk about civilizational states and even about development is that it ignores the reality of power, which is that whatever the structure is, you're still dealing with power, whether you contain it in a civilization state or an empire. It ignores the fact that some people have more power and some people have less, and the people with more power will dominate the people with less, and the people with more development will dominate the people with less. In a civilization state, one group will have more power and dominate the periphery. In the world order, one civilization may dominate a whole continent. It's sort of unavoidable. And so it's really against this idealism that says, according to a principle, we're going to tell all these people that have no development, oh, here's the keys to the kingdom. You get to determine your fate. I'm invested in that. I'm not. And I'm not in favor of that for its own sake. I'm only in favor of it as a means to an end. So that's what I was trying to get at with all these things.
And Haz, wouldn't you agree that even if there's truth to what you're saying, would you risk it? Like, would you really? I'll wait 5 years, 10,
no,
20.
I don't have
30.
to.
Would you risk it, or would you say, let's just go fucking Catholic Empire, let's make everyone Christian, let's all be ruled?
I wouldn't have to risk anything. I mean, if you're saying if I was in power, I'd probably try to do what China's doing is share and exchange and try to actually aid in these people's development.
Wouldn't you agree that some people being ruled actually benefits that people?
Not hold on, let me rephrase that. Not aid as in like giving aid, but as in the
Wait,
sense of
can there be a group of people that's ruled that actually benefits from the rulership, or no? You don't believe that?
no, that's possible.
What? But you're saying there's no distinction in race and DNA, so that would be stupid.
I think that if you have nothing culturally or historically or geographically to do with the people halfway around the world, and you try to control them and force your way of life and your laws on them, it's not going to be tenable. It's not going to work.
Interesting. Well,
I agree with that.